Good morning, students of first prep. We will take today the second lesson in the third unit for first prep, which talks about adaptation. What the meaning of adaptation? Adaptation means the living organisms makes a modification in their behavior or in their structure or in their biological function to be more adapted to live in their environment. What the meaning of structural adaptation? If we take two living organisms like the horse and the camel and we try to compare between their legs, we will find that the camel back is flat and fat. Why? Because it moves on the sand, so its back helps it to move in desert. But if we look at the two front limbs of the horse, we found that it's solid and small. Why? To help the horse to move in rocky land. So the structure of the body of horse and the camel is according to the environment where they live. What the meaning of functional adaptation? Functional adaptation means the body of some living organism do a certain function in a certain situation, like the snake secretes poison only when it feels he's in danger, and our body secretes sweat only when we are in summer. So this is a function, we do it only in a certain conditions. The third type of adaptation is behavioral adaptation, which means that the living organisms do a certain behavior in a certain time. Like the migration of birds. The birds migrate from place to another only at a certain time in the year. So this is called behavioral adaptation. So we have three types of adaptation. Maybe it's structural in part of the living organism's body, or functional as they do certain function in a certain situation, or behavioral, which is they make a behavior in time of the year. Why do the living organisms do this adaptation? For three reasons. To move in different environment, when the living organisms move from their environment to a new environment, or to get the food from the environment, or to escape from their enemies. So we have three reasons for adaptation. When the living organisms moves to a different environment, or to get their food in the environment, or to escape from animals. From the famous modifications or adaptations in the living organisms, the modifications which happen in some mammals in their front limbs, like whales and dolphins and sea lions, their front limbs modified or changed into paddles. Why? Because they live in water, to help them to swim or dive in the water. Also, the front limbs of the bat is modified into wings. Why? To help it to fly. The front limbs of the horse is modified into legs. Why? To help it to do its function of running. The front limbs of monkeys or gorilla is modified into long arms. Why? To help them climb the trees or catch things. Some of the animals or the living organisms make adaptation according to the way where they get their food, like the birds. We have three types of birds. Predatory birds which eat meat, like hawk. Its beak has a modification to become strong and sharp to tear the meat of their prey, and their legs have four bendable fingers with sharp claw to help it tear the flesh meat of the prey, and this is a type of structural adaptation because it happened in a part of its body. And the second type of birds, the birds which feed on worms and snails, like heron, it has and long and end with thin fingers to help it not stick on the mud of the bowl, and it's also a structural adaptation. And the third type of bird is a birds which fed on fish like ducks and geese, which have a wide indented beak and its legs modified into palm leg to help it swim in the water, and it's also a structural adaptation. So the birds, they all are birds, but their body, their beak and legs modified according to the way they get their food. And we have also adaptation, but according to the environment where the living organisms live. Like we have some living organisms made hibernation. What the meaning of hibernation? We say that some living organisms hide during winter from the low temperature, like some reptiles and some insects and the frogs. And it's a behavioral adaptation, and its opposite is estivation. We say that some living organisms hide from the high temperature in summer, like the desert snail and jerboa, and it's also a behavioral adaptation. Some living organisms like the birds migrate from a place to another, like the quail bird, which migrate from the polar cold areas to little bit warmer area for reproduction, and it's also a behavioral adaptation. And some living organisms made a camouflage. What's the meaning of camouflage? It means hiding from the enemies by changing the shape of their body like the shape of the environment, like the leafist insect or the stick insect, which have the shape of the leaf or like the leaf of the tree, and it's a structural adaptation. And like the chameleon, which change its outer color like the color of the environment, and it's called functional adaptation.